I wanted to make a video about what's going on right now in the world. Oh boy, where to start? I want to be able to say something that will make it all better. Just, the perfect explanation, and it will just calm everyone down and make them able to maybe think a little more clearly. But I don't think it's possible, and I've really tried for the last 4 years. This all kind of started for me in 2012 when I started to start reading some stuff online about feminism. I could go into it, but it's like the second you say the wrong thing, that like half of people just stop watching and they stop listening and they stop thinking because it's already some part of their mind has been triggered to think, oh, this person's on the wrong side. I can't listen to what they're saying. I can't try to hear it out. So I just don't. I'm always thinking about all these things whenever I'm talking or writing, and I don't really know where to start. Basically, the Charlottesville thing happened, and I just want to try and just go at this randomly. Maybe I should read it, but that happened, and a whole lot of people on my Facebook feed and on my, everywhere are giving these opinions, and I really don't disagree with anything they're saying on principle. They're just, these people are Nazi fucks or whatever, they're white supremacists. I don't think most of them are white supremacists, and I know that because I've listened to what they say, which is like a very rare thing to do, because most people, they don't want to have to listen to things that offend them to understand it. They just, especially the line is drawn around identity politics for white people, are sort of like the one most universally agreed upon evil that exists. And we were all kind of taught that when we were growing up. And our media largely reinforces that, in institutions. In school, I remember it's just like every class I took, I'd be writing something about how the horrible white Western male oppressors. I knew to write that stuff. All my professors wanted me to do that. And so I did it, and I didn't think much about it. I was just like, oh, this is cool, I'm not in a cult or anything. There's nothing weird about this. It's just the way it is, and that's just, I accepted that that's what it was. After I graduated college, there were a lot of little things that happened, but it all eventually added up to me. Sort of, I don't want to go too much into it, but my mind has expanded. My opinions have changed a lot since when I voted for Obama in 2012 or 2011. I'm not the same person I was back then. It was only 5 years ago, but a lot can change. And I think a lot in our society changed, actually. I think that something developed in our social structure and in our culture in America that was not there before then. I think the second Obama, second 4 years of his second term, whatever, something went wrong in our country, and I felt it back then, and I think a lot of what's happening now is a reaction to that. It's a reaction to a culture which he created, basically. I'm not saying he himself necessarily created it, but his regime created a culture in America and a social pattern of intellectual and ideological repression, which became worsening over that period of time, and it became more and more pervasive. During that stretch of time, BLM was sort of like a trigger, And a lot of people that I knew were very taken by that, and there were a lot of people taken by a lot of, trying to think. There were several things that happened with BLM, and to me, that was sort of the start when I started to feel like something was not adding up for me, because it seemed to me that people were overly convinced that this was obviously that this was a clear-cut situation. I never thought it was clear-cut, personally. I always was a little bit skeptical of it. But the way I saw people who I knew in my life who were liberal or progressive talking about it, they were talking about it as though it was this great movement, this great obvious thing that everyone should agree upon, that's on their side, that voted for Obama. And I just found myself kind of confused because I didn't really think it was a movement. I thought it was, to me, it just looked like some nutcase got into a fight with a black kid. I didn't think it was indicative of, I didn't think you can turn that into a giant meaningful thing if there's no real giant meaningful thing there. You can't just create that out of thin air, and I saw people trying to do that, and I did not agree with that. And it became clear to me that if you did not agree with it, you were called racist. You couldn't question it. And that was when the sort of ideological repression started. And I lived through this, a lot of other people did, and we kind of pulled out of polite society, Facebook society basically, because we can't post these opinions online. We're watching all these people we know posting this shit, and you can't really say anything. And that's kind of when this SJW disease, as I see it, really kind of broke out in full form. And there were a lot of other events that took place, but it progressed severely. And I could go into it more in other videos, I think, but it sort of brings us to where we are now. And I think that a lot of what's happened with the whites, I'm not going to call them white supremacists because the vast majority of them aren't. Even saying that, you're not allowed to say that because the narrative has been decided upon. They're white supremacists. If you say that they're not, you must sympathize with them, and therefore you must be a racist, and that's the worst thing on the face of the planet to be. I have all kinds of more things I could say about this. However, the main point that I wanted to make in this video was just to say I think that a lot of what we're seeing now is just a natural outgrowth of that period of time, 2012 to 2016, when the social justice warriors became a cultural fad, and I never liked it at any point, and I voted for Obama. I was a socialist. I wrote my papers for my professors about how horrible the West was and everything, and capitalism. I don't believe that anymore at all, but point is, I was on their side back then, and something changed, and it seemed to me that something went very wrong on a very frightening level. I was always very afraid of it, and what we're seeing now is the reaction to that, and I can't say that I fully disagree with this reaction. I think there's a reason why it's happening. I don't think it's good that it is happening. It would be better if it wasn't happening, and if this conflict was not rising for whatever reason it is, historical or whatever. There is a conflict that's taking place, and I just don't see either side being blameworthy more than the other one. I just see a bunch of people who are not listening and not thinking. And I honestly think it is, frankly, more on the left right now. I think you have a responsibility with the amount of control you have over the media and institutions to do the right thing, and I just don't think you've been doing the right thing. That's my opinion. So that's all I'm going to say for now.